When discussing Catholic prophecy, you'll occasionally, if you're doing any research on this, find messages given by Our Lady or by mystics who are otherwise approved by church authorities, or sometimes by people who compile these messages, that a timeline was given, and it appears that timeline has passed already. And so some people immediately throw out the prophecy. I'm going to offer you a different take on that because I'm going to give you a rather unknown prophecy to most people who pay attention to these things, and that is the message given to Bernadette of Lourdes. The prophecies often have a timeline for the year 2000, which, passed 25 years ago. So some would say, well, that means these are fake. The alternative view I want to give you is this. In all of these should be understood in light of the Fatima message. The same Virgin Mary who appeared at Lourdes was the same Virgin Mary who appeared at Fatima. The same Virgin Mary who appeared at Fatima is the same who appeared at Akita and in Quito, Ecuador, and in various places in Germany in the 1930s and 40s, and on it goes. And when you look at those messages in the context of that understanding, and in the understanding also that the popes starting in the 1940s did consecrations of the world or of multiple countries invoking the Fatima message, while not actually consecrating that country explicitly by itself, asked for in the Fatima message, you begin to see something else happening here. A pope consecrating the world is going to have an effect. There is going to be an outpouring of grace of some kind, even if it doesn't meet the requirements of the consecration asked for explicitly in the message of Fatima. My contention is that when Pius XII, John Paul II, Benedict XVI, and even Pope Francis consecrated the world, invoking the Fatima message and the Immaculate Heart of Mary, even if they did it improperly, meaning they were supposed to consecrate a certain country by itself and nothing else, and they didn't do that, there was still an outpouring of grace, and it has bought us time. That is my contention when looking at a lot of these prophecies, and I want to hammer that idea home because you are about to hear a message from Bernadette of Lourdes. She was given a message, allegedly by the Virgin Mary, about coming events. And of the 5 things she said, 4 have already come to pass. Fascinating stuff. And the 5th was supposed to happen starting in the year 2000. And you can read it multiple ways. Let's go now to the prophecy as given by Bernadette of Lourdes. It's worth reminding ourselves that she entered a convent where she actually, in a way that is often described ironically, succumbed to an incurable illness. Before she passed away in 1879, she wrote a letter to the Pope, and here she detailed 5 prophecies that had been revealed to her by the Virgin Mary. The Pope at that time would have been Leo XIII. The contents had never been made public until they were found in the late 20th century. Here are the prophecies. The first prophecy of Lourdes dealt basically with what would happen to the shrine at Lourdes in the years soon after St. Bernadette's passing, explaining how it would become a renowned center for healing, said the researcher. This is certainly true. The second prophecy is described an array of varied scientific achievements involving, quote, the harnessing of lightning that were to take place before 1906. This came true with the invention of the light bulb, the phonograph, and other inventions using electricity, said Father Legrand. The third prophecy stated that in the 1930s, a terrible evil would awaken in Germany and painted a horrifying picture of a war that would envelop most of the nations of the world. This came to pass at the rise of the Austrian painter and the advent of that war, said Father Legrand. The fourth prophecy told in detail of an effort that would be made by mankind to reach the heavens, and predicted that close to 1970, an American would walk on the moon. This prophecy was fulfilled when the astronaut Neil Armstrong landed on the moon in 1969, said Father Legrand. And the fifth prophecy is the most extensive. This is the following is an excerpt from Saint Bernadette and translated from the original French for the prophecy of Lourdes. Your Holiness, she says to the Pope, the Virgin has told me that when the 20th century passes away, with it will pass away the age of science. A new age of faith will dawn around the world. Proof will come at last that it was our Lord who created the world and man, and this was the beginning of the end for the scientists, in whom people will cease to believe. Millions will return to Christ, and as the number of believers swell, the power of the church will grow as never before. Also, causing many to turn their backs on science will be the arrogance of physicians who use their knowledge to create an abomination. These doctors will find the means to combine the essence of a man and the essence of a beast and create a new creature that is neither fully man nor fully beast. The people will know in their hearts that this is wrong, but they will be powerless to stop the spawning of such monsters. In the end, they will hunt them down as ravenous wolves are hunted. On the eve of the year 2000, a final clash between the followers of the false prophet of the crescent moon religion and the Christian nations of the world will take place. A furious battle will be waged in which 5.6 million soldiers are ended, and a device of great power will fall on a city in Persia. But in the fullness of time, the sign of the cross will prevail, and all of that false way will be forced to will end up converting to Christianity. There will follow a century of peace and joy as all the nations of the earth lay down their swords and shields. Great prosperity will follow as the Lord showers his blessings down upon the faithful. No family on earth will know poverty or hunger. One person in 10 will be granted by God the power to heal, and they will cast out all sicknesses from those who seek their aid. Many will rejoice at these miracles. The 21st century will come to be known as the second golden age of mankind. End quote. So why didn't that come to pass? And I would posit that that didn't come to pass because of the crisis of modernism in the church. So goes the church, so goes the world. But some of that has come to pass. Would you deny that that conflict between the followers of the false prophet of the crescent moon religion and Christians has started? Would you deny that? I would not. Here we are, a quarter of the way through the 21st century. But it feels like things are coming to a head with that things are becoming more open. As for those abominations created by by those who call themselves scientists but are actually devoted to scientism, which is, as many modern Catholic theologians will point out, is the elevation essentially of science to an ideology or a religion, take your pick. We've seen that as well. Many are the images out there of human ears and skin and things being grown on the back of mice and other such things. And these things cause people to blanch in horror. And it does appear that people's attitudes in general, the lukewarmness about morality that allows people to accept these abominations is starting to go away. I'll give you an example. It was reported recently that American attitudes towards the parody of holy matrimony that James Martin, the infamous Jesuit priest, he promotes for his favorite group of sinners, American attitudes towards it went from something like 70% generally approving that parody being legal to now under 50%. What happened? It's not a great religious awakening per se, though this is happening against the backdrop of suddenly large amounts of young people converting to Catholicism and many Protestants converting to Catholicism to the point where Protestant influencers, social media influencers, are starting to wonder what's going on, that they are seeing many people that they know converting to Catholicism. So, what is happening? We're also getting data, though, that fewer people are entering the church than ever before and that more are leaving. It appears that there's a great winnowing happening of the lukewarm. And while many people who are lukewarm are actually starting to wake up, it seems to be a complex situation. Now, will this alleged prophecy of St. Bernadette come to pass? I don't know. But the signs seem to be pointing to it coming to pass. And the final thing have you think on is this. It said in the year 2000 the conflict would begin. I want you to go back to 2001, specifically September of that year. There's a certain date there, a certain Tuesday that will live in infamy for our generation, and that future generations will look back in the same way that we look back on Pearl Harbor as one of those pivotal moments in human history. Perhaps that conflict has started, but it's only because of modernist attitudes in the church, cardinals and bishops telling us that the triune God is the same as that worshipped by the crescent moon followers. Absolutely blasphemous thing that they say. Perhaps it is really only the attitudes of prelates in the church, keeping this glorious moment of reconciliation and glorious triumph of the Immaculate Heart from taking place. After all, when Francis did his little consecration, he didn't only invoke the name of that country that's supposed to be invoked, he also invoked another country and the whole world. All that was requested was a certain country, and it would convert to Catholicism, and it would happen dramatically, and the world would have a Marian age of peace, the triumph of the Immaculate Heart. And we're not there yet. It seems the biggest obstacle to this happening is the attitudes of Catholic prelates, the same men who ordain priests who have the power granted by God to transubstantiate the Eucharist and to absolve men of their sins. They wield awesome power, but many don't believe that they do. Many of themselves don't believe that they have this power. Perhaps the biggest obstacle of all to what you just heard happening in all of its horror and glory for God is simply the attitude of Catholic prelates who have a materialist false gospel at this moment. Let me know what you think about this. I'm not sure what to think about this Catholic prophecy, but let me know what you think about this in the comments, please. Like and subscribe if you haven't. It certainly helps. So does sharing this on social media. That helps too. And as always, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.